Hey, what up? I'm Jay Bond from Bloodbath and Beyond, and you're watching the Don't Go Out There Horror Podcast.
Back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast, powered by the Big Three Roll-Up. I just want to thank all of our fans and listeners for their support. We really appreciate it. I'm super excited about this upcoming interview. With over 96,000 YouTube subscribers and over 27 million views, my man Jay Bond from the very successful YouTube channel, Bloodbath and Beyond. How are you doing today, sir?
Fantastic. Welcome. Thank you for having me. Welcome. I've been in the sauce already. I'm gonna be honest. Straight up, I like to drink when I start talking horror, and here we are. I got my Crown Royal and Pepsi ready to rock. Let's go.
Let's have fun. We like to kick all of our interviews off with just some background. What got you into the horror genre?
Just watching horror movies as a kid. When I'm obviously, like a lot of people, when they weren't supposed to. Like my mom brought me to like the convenience store or whatever. I saw Chucky on the front cover of Child's Play, and that was it. It was like, I want that one. My mom didn't give a shit. She's like, whatever, here you go. And that was it. And from there, it like obviously falling in love with Jason and watching any of those like kid-related movies like Ghoulies and Critters and all that stuff that seemed to be targeted at like really young people, which weren't supposed to be watching it. And then just kind of stuck with it.
Oh, I was terrified of Chucky as a little kid.
Oh, hell yeah. Understandably.
I would run as soon as... I remember when Bride of Chucky came out and the commercial would come on during WCW Nitro, I would run out the room. I was like, I'm trying to watch wrestling, not be terrified right now.
Hell yeah.
Let's jump into your channel now some. We had Jeroen from Horrible Reviews on, and I had to ask him, so I'm going to ask you as well. What inspired you to make a YouTube channel, and on average, how long does it take you to make these videos?
Oof. So, kind of like, I'll try and be really quick with this, but we
Take your time,
like,
man.
We were a bunch of just like horror fans. Me and my buddies back in the day through high school would always watch horror movies. Right after school, it's just like, all right, let's go back to Andy's house and watch some movies. So my buddy Andy wanted to like do something. He wanted to write a movie, or he was doing something in the field. And me and my buddy Travis were like, well, let's start a podcast and you can start talking and we can start building up kind of like a little base for you to kind of just, you can start talking with the community and get him a little bit involved. Well, Andy chicken shitted out when it was time to film. And so I had a local buddy named John, who's now my current co-host, and he came over for the day. It was supposed to be a podcast. We were just watching Sharknado. It was like the year that Sharknado came out. And we just recorded as a podcast, and I had like an extra video camera from when I was like making little rap videos in my basement. So I just set it up, and that's what we filmed. We just filmed it, not even thinking of YouTube. It was supposed to be a podcast, but we didn't know where it was going to go. It was just like, let's film something and figure it out later.
No, absolutely. That's awesome, man. Another couple quick questions on your channel. How did you come up with the name? I think it's super catchy. Was it just the obvious play on words, or just something you thought of? Also, I've noticed a lot of different guests throughout the episodes. Are those just some friends of yours? And how do you decide who's going to be on the episodes? Because there's always like a different... I always remember you and John, but there's always a different person in the middle, it seems like.
Yeah. So it did start off with like me, Trav, and John for like quite a while, but they are definitely my friends that pop in and out. And these are like just friends that I've either known for a long time or friends that I met when I moved down closer to John, because we didn't live close to each other when we started. So just whoever wants to be on that's in the area, I'm like, hey, yeah, come on over. And that's why I think we kind of were successful, especially early on, was because it's like we're just a bunch of friends hanging out. We're not experts in horror at all. It's just, why not get together, have some drinks, and just talk some shit? And that's what it was. To touch on a question that you asked that I neglected to mention, to create an episode takes like maybe like 5 to 6 hours, maybe more than that, depending, because it'll be like we always watch the movies together so that we have that same kind of vibe when we go and sit in the studio and film it. We watch the movie. We don't talk about, like, well, we do talk and make jokes throughout the movie. We don't actually like tell each other what we think of the movie until the very last part of our review. When we say our final ratings, that's the first time we put our hands behind our back and we shoot on the table like, okay, 3, 2, 1, and you're locked into that. If I give something a 2 and John gives it a 5, like that's what you were gonna go with. We don't want to be influenced by each other. So between the filming and then the editing, sometimes the editing can be like 5 hours. So it depends on if it's like a retro movie and you need to include a bunch of voice lines from, people's favorite scenes, because you don't want to review Scream and exclude really key moments. So it depends on the movie. How we came up with the name, we, much like a lot of people, we jotted a bunch of names down, and basically we stuck with this one. We wanted to try and find something that was a pun, very similar to like Cinemassacre. We love that name, obviously being big angry video game nerd fans back in the day. We were like, we need something like that. Bloodbath and Beyond was one of the puns that came up, and we just landed on it, not knowing that other people had already done that joke before us, and that's fine. We hear it all the time, and it was on The Simpsons, I guess. It appeared in one episode as the gun store at the time when we made it. Gwar had an album or like a DVD called Bloodbath and Beyond, and then there was Matt Hazard of like a Bulletstorm video game, I think. It was something from like Epic, and it is what it is. But like, I don't know. I think the name alone has gotten us some kind of recognition in the horror community, just because they're like, that's a funny name, I'm going to subscribe. There's so many comments like that. So I'm thankful we stuck with this one.
Oh, absolutely. I think I can't remember the very first video I ever watched, but the name is very cool. It's just like Bloodbath. That's y'all's always intro at the beginning. So that's super cool, man. Your channel ranges from the mainstream horror movies and franchises all the way to lesser known, such as the Pork Chop franchise, which I have no idea what that's about, honestly. I think it's great you guys take on such a wide variety of movies. Can you talk to our audience about your approach to reviewing the movies?
Yeah. Well, it's changed over the years, of course, with YouTube and needing to kind of conform to some algorithm stuff to try and stay relevant. But for the most part, it's whatever that we want to watch. And that, I think, is what we don't want to lose while doing this. We've been doing it for like 7 years now, and we always still are digging through the crates looking for some random movie that nobody's heard of. And thankfully now, like, we watch a lot of Tubi movies now because they've got all the lowest bottom barrel indie stuff, whether they're good or not. Just like just movies that you would never see elsewhere. They're not promoted anywhere. And Pork Chop is one of those. Like, we went to Family Video, and we're just like, what is this? You pick up the DVD, and we had to pick them up right away. And then we that was probably one of those gateway horrors for indies that we're like, okay, who is this director? It's like Eamon Hardiman. We found out who he was. We started following his career. We started looking at all of his friends and the stuff that they popped up in. And these are obviously going to be movies that nobody's heard of. And then you just kind of go from there. And mixing in the mainstream stuff is just kind of one of those things. Like, it comes with the territory. People start asking, oh, are you going to cover Spiral? Like, of course. Yeah, we're going to cover Spiral. But we do try and make sure we still look for like those mid-2000s no-budget movies or some shot-on-video 80s stuff that we just enjoy watching and are kind of those movies that we would have watched back in the day when we were in high school.
Oh yeah, one review that you've done that I want to check out is Slaw, just because I love Slaw, and I think it looked terrible, but it also looked pretty funny too.
That's going to be a hit or miss for like everybody, to be honest. Like, it's really bad comedy, but like, comedy is the most subjective thing ever. So like, what I think is funny versus what you might think is funny, so different. That's the one thing that I think, like, you can never have a stronger opinion on somebody. Like I hate that movie, but they did try, and there are people that are going to love that one. So it's on Tubi as well. So check it out.
Oh wow! Okay, I'll
definitely. The poster is funny, and it's got some wrestler cameos in there. We got Doc Gallows, we got Glacier from WCW. Fun stuff.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to check it out just to see if I can get a couple good laughs. I've noticed on your, I think is this like a separate channel? I'm not sure. I've noticed on your channel, Extreme Underground, you've taken on some of the world's most disturbing movies. that's what that's what his channel got famous from.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on disturbing cinema?
I'm absolutely a massive fan. And I don't know if that just comes with like the territory of growing up watching horror. At some point you get desensitized to certain things. Like most movies we watch, you're not scared, but you're still invested. You're still interested in what's going on. And with disturbing, it kind of pushes the boundaries of what's acceptable. And I think like even horror in general, like I said, watching as a kid, I was watching that because I wasn't supposed to. It's like taboo. And so disturbing films are like that to me as well. And the same can be true for like even horrible reviews. Like I know that he said very similar things. Like me and him talk all the time. He's a really great dude. Very cool that you've had him on here. He was one of the first people that I started watching when we started our channel. He was the ceiling. He was the biggest YouTuber at the time when we started in 2013. And being able to like talk to him, potentially have a collab coming up with him. There's just like, I don't know, like disturbing cinema is interesting, and the fans of that niche, there's like it's a whole different world. So especially like after being like doing our regular indie stuff for so long, I'm finding newer fans that are just only focused on the disturbing stuff, and it's really cool. There's a lot of foreign stuff that I'm learning about, and yeah, it started as just a playlist, like a series of videos that I did on Bloodbath and Beyond, and I've spun it off into its own channel because you have to almost, because if people are watching our fun reviews of indie stuff like Sharknado or Aquarium of the Dead, do they want to see the Chilean Serbian film? Like that one's called Trauma, by the way. Watch out. The first scene is there's just like a lot of really disgusting shit I watch. Slaughtered Vomit Dolls and the Vomit Gore trilogy. Like even the titles sicken me, and that's why I'm so intrigued by it. And so I spun it off into another channel, not only because to separate the focus, but also because we don't want to risk what we have on Bloodbath when we're starting to put out stuff that looks like it could be snuff in YouTube's algorithm eyes or whatever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Keep that stuff separate from the wholesome stuff.
Yeah. I mean, not to say that we're wholesome all the time, but
oh yeah, but you don't want to watch a Spiral review and then jump right into Slaughtered Vomit Doll. I think it might turn some people off.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're right, it's a niche. You're gonna want to like in the power of a thumbnail. I know like on horrible reviews, like that thumbnail like took his video off. It's got like 3.5 million views compared to the rest of them. It's disgusting.
Yep.
We live in a really messed up world, as you know. After watching these disturbing films, you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but has it desensitized you in mainstream films or even like the real world news stories?
Yeah, to some degree. So like maybe not real world stuff, because you always need to try and separate that. You need to make sure you separate that, because when you can't separate like fact from fiction, then you become a serial killer yourself. So 100%, there's going to be a clear divide. Like, yes, there's like a lot of bad shit going on. Like obviously there's just so much to touch on that I won't touch on now, but you have to make sure that as much dark shit as you watch, you make sure that you stay focused on what's real. Because there was a time in my life where I was watching too many horror movies where I had to take a break because it was getting to my head. I was getting super depressed. I was down on myself. This was back like, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe longer than that. But it was just like, I was in a really dark place. I had to shut off all horror movies for a little bit because, you start leaning too heavy in one direction, you might start thinking that is real. And so, yeah, I am definitely desensitized to some degree, but not to real world stuff.
I've only seen like bits and pieces of stuff like Serbian film and all that.
Yep.
But there's no way I could watch that movie. Just watching, him, what he does to that poor woman who's handcuffed to the bed with a machete. I just don't think I could stomach it. Like, I don't even like watching Rob Zombie's Halloween, the rape scene. Like, I think that's extreme. So yeah, I can only imagine the rest of it.
Yeah, it is tricky. It is like, because there's scenes like that where it's like, yes, I obviously am trying to like put myself in not necessarily the same shoes, but you're trying to relate to some degree because that's how you resonate with characters when watching any movie. But like, I completely understand when people don't want to watch some of the stuff that I do. And I even have had to take breaks in the past. Like with Extreme Underground, I've been doing it for several years on Bloodbath and Beyond. But if you notice the trickle out of videos, it's like, oh, he went really hard for 1 month and then stopped for 6. It's not because I couldn't technically do it. It's because maybe some shit was getting to my head and I just needed to like pump the brakes, maybe recalibrate and make sure that there is still some kind of, I'm still sensitive to some stuff, because not only does it make me a sane person, but it also makes for better content, because then I can explain it to other people that aren't used to watching the same shit as I am. And I'm not like the end all and be all of disturbing film either. Like there's so much shit that I haven't seen that will probably shock me and disgust me. And I'm finding it hard right now to edit some videos that I have already shot, where it's just like, oh, when you have to start skimming through some of these disturbing movies, like frame by frame, and you're like, oh fuck, do I want to do this? I need to take a break.
Yeah, definitely understand that. So I know your channel has been influenced a lot through fan interaction, and as content creators ourselves, it's very cool for us to get messages from fans. Can you talk to us a little bit about your fan interaction influence on your channel?
Yeah, just like it's been crazy ever since, like even before. I think when we had like 1,000 subscribers, we got like a handwritten note from like a viewer. At that time, you weren't thinking about getting doxxed, so you're like, yeah, here's my address. Come on out. Send me mail, whatever. Here's my home phone number. But people, like, we would get letters of people that were suicidal that were just like, I'm so thankful that I found your channel. And just talking about their life and just being that outlet for certain people, which is interesting because that's what I do with other channels unrelated to horror. But when you start to realize that you look for outlets when you're off work, you just want to chill out, you want to just throw on the TV, put on some YouTube or something, you realize that you actually give a shit about these people that you're watching. And to realize that you are that to somebody else is like mind-blowing. I try and make sure that I talk to everybody in the comments, most, like every video. If you look at any video, most comments I will have responded to. It takes up a lot of time, but it's part of a community. It's social media because you want to be social. I don't want to just sit here and make a video and throw it up and walk away. That's not really what we're about. That's why I'm here right now. We talked on Twitter, and I was just like, hey, you want to come on? It's like, yeah, sure. Like it's all about just connecting with people that are like-minded. That's it.
Absolutely, man.
Absolutely.
This is something I'm excited to hear about. March 13th, 2021, you uploaded a video to YouTube titled Major Channel Update. You announced you had resigned from your job to focus on your channels. Can you talk to us about that huge leap of faith and the thought process going into all of that?
Yeah. In hindsight, was it a terrible idea? Maybe. But I would have been kicking myself if I didn't. What was happening was I was working on a big project at work. I was like a UX designer, so I was like basically building a big platform that was about to launch, and I wasn't really happy. I was butting heads with some people at work, and I just said, "Fuck it." If I'm gonna quit, I'm just not gonna jump into another job right away. So it wasn't necessarily that I quit to focus on YouTube. It was that I was gonna quit, and instead of jumping into another job, I'm gonna use some time, use some of the bank that I have to just like take some time off and just focus on YouTube and see if I can make it a career. 3 months in now, or I guess just over 2 months, almost 3 months. Not much has changed, to be honest. I've been playing with, how many videos I put out, what things I cover, to see if I can kind of like increase income to see if it's viable. Not so much yet, but we'll see. I still have my reevaluation date is September 16th. And so at that point, I'll have a better idea because my wrestling channel and Extreme Underground weren't monetized yet. Or the wrestling one now is, but Extreme Underground isn't. So even if I do need to get a job in September, like I'll swallow my pride. It's all good. Like I completely get that. So my goal right now is to focus on all three channels, build them up to be able to coast or at least have a big back catalog. So when I do need to go back to work, if that happens, I'm still good on all three channels. It's tough running three channels, I'm gonna be honest, because some people think that I'm not doing shit sometimes, and I am. I'm just in a different lane. That's it.
Dude, it's hard running just one podcast with 3 co-hosts, doing 3 YouTube channels and depending on it. Couldn't imagine the stress.
Yeah,
Wouldn't want the stress.
It's weird. I think what's the more stressful part is when you upload a video you think is going to be good, not only for the channel, but like just in general, people will like it, and it just bombs, and you're like, well, what the fuck? That had everything that I thought should be successful. And then, you've got other videos that blow up from 6 years ago. It's like, okay, well, thankfully that blew up, because otherwise I would be broke and I have no money. So like, what's weird too is something that I didn't want to happen, but is inevitable if you're going to quit your job and try and be a YouTuber. Like, you have to start focusing on the money. And well, we don't make a ton on YouTube anyway. Usually it's like most stuff is through Patreon, thankfully. We have some good support there. But like YouTube fluctuates like crazy. Like you can make this number today and then it'll drop by tomorrow. It's like, it's nuts. But I don't really like that micromanaging in my head and trying to determine content based on that. It's like, yeah, okay, we're going to do Conjuring, but I still want to do that low budget indie stuff as well, which probably will never make me money, but more for the sanity and just for the love, to make sure that I'm still in love with what we do, Because if you just only focus on the stuff that's going to get you money, I would have been reviewing iPhones back in the day. Like, fuck, I'm not here doing independent horror for the money. But if I can spin it that way, then why not? That would be awesome.
Absolutely. And we can definitely relate to that. We've done some reviews that we think are going to do great numbers, and then for some reason Anaconda continues to blow up on our YouTube. That right? Anaconda review, we're like, what the hell's going on with that? But yeah, it's crazy. So this next question I'm excited about. A couple of our co-hosts, me and Mike, we're huge wrestling fans.
Oh,
and so
you don't
we know
say.
That, yeah, you can tell by the background here. I know you've got the other channel called MidCard Maniacs. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that channel and then just your passion in wrestling, kind of what got you into it?
Absolutely. So me and John have always been like lifelong wrestling fans. So he's my co-host on Bloodbath and Beyond. And kind of like what I was just talking about is you want to make sure that you still love what you're doing. And so part of that is making sure that you can, like, every time John came over, just as a friend, we'd always be thinking about Bloodbath. And it's like, fuck, man, like we need to do something else. We would get together for pay-per-views, of course, and we'd talk wrestling. And we're just like, why don't we just make a wrestling channel too? And we can do whatever the hell we want. And that's how that started. It was just like, we just need to do something else. So maybe he comes over on a Saturday, we can watch some horror, and we can talk about AEW stuff or fantasy book something here. And that's really it. Like, we've been fans forever. I did take a big break basically when CM Punk came to be. Like, I missed the whole Punk era. And that's about like, it's a big chunk. It was like 6 to 7 years, I think. I just kind of stepped away. So I haven't even seen probably one Punk match. Yet I understand what he's done. Yeah. But like, there was a lot. So I got back into it in 2013 at the first Takeover show. Me and John happened to be we were in New York. We were doing something like some press for a horror movie called Jersey Shore Massacre. And we just threw on Takeover. And I think I saw like Bailey and Sasha. I don't know if that was it. I think it was that. And I was just like, oh, I'm into this now. And we watched some Legend House, and it really, like, we were just getting into the network a little bit. And that's what reignited my love for wrestling. And then obviously AEW has perpetuated that, and watching indie stuff like GCW, lots of different stuff. It's fun. It's fun to just have a different thing to talk about, just like, hey, we don't want to talk about horror today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've got the horror podcast, of course, but like I said, Mike and I, we love wrestling, and so we text each other about wrestling all the time, and we'll just fantasy book stuff. So that's awesome that you do that with your friend.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite promotion?
Man, currently it's probably AEW, but I gotta tell you, I'm a big fan of Ring of Honor as well. Right before the pandemic, I think they were really hitting their stride, getting back. Some of the biggest names in wrestling have come through there, but I was loving what they were doing. The pandemic hit, and they're still right there. They're still putting out quality content, but I'm a homer for Ring of Honor and AEW at the moment.
Right on. I'm an AEW mark mostly. Ring of Honor, I haven't watched enough. I know I should. Yeah. I get like messages from Fight TV like every time it's on, and I just never watch it. Like I keep tabs on like who's there, what's happening, but I don't actually watch the product much.
Yeah, I definitely get that.
I was a big fan of wrestling, back in the day, but I think my passion ran out once it became, when The Rock left and Sting and all, I love that era, but I just couldn't get back into it. We're getting ready to wrap up soon, but I gotta call you out on something, my man. This is all in fun.
Yeah.
I watched your review of Malibu's Most Wanted. You kind of hated on it at the end. I love that movie, man. What's up with that?
I don't know, man. I couldn't do it. I think John was okay with it, if I remember.
I'm with you.
I couldn't do it. I think so here's the big reason. So we hype this up. So every April 1st, we do some random movie. Usually it's something with an urban flair to it. We've done Pootie Tang. We've done Kazam. Shaq is a rapping genie, one of the best movies ever made.
Absolutely.
And Malibu's Most Wanted, I was waiting for certain scenes to play out that just never came. And I'm like, what the hell happened here? I was thinking of Scary Movie with B Rabbit. So the whole time I'm waiting for the 8 Mile scene, and I'm waiting for them to hit on certain notes, and I'm like, what's going on? And I just ended up getting pissed at it, just not loving it. It is what it is. Jamie Kennedy is great. I like him as a person. I think some of his comedy is certainly dated. Some of his comedy now seems dated as well. We saw him at a recent comedy show. I got him to sign my Scream Blu-ray that I brought. It was awkward.
Oh, awesome.
Hold on. I do need to just mention that. This was the most awkward thing. So I don't really go to comedy shows, but I knew he was coming. I brought my Blu-ray. I put it in my hoodie pocket. John, being he loves comedy, he made us sit right on the rail. And in the middle of a joke that had nothing to do with Scream, he didn't talk about Scream throughout the whole thing. Just halfway through the show, he looks directly at me. He's like, "You're a Scream fan, aren't you?" I'm like, "Oh, fuck, what? How do you know?" And so I'm already super embarrassed, but I'm also way too drunk to be sitting that close. And I immediately pop out my Blu-ray. I'm like, I brought my movie. Can you sign it? I look like an 8-year-old dude. And so having Randy sign it right there, it was cool, but it was so awkward.
That's incredible.
That's one of the best stories I ever heard in my life.
Why did he stop and just look at me? And why me? I wasn't wearing I probably wasn't wearing a horror hat. Usually I wouldn't be.
So there was no payoff to that? You never found out why he called that out?
He just it was just so random. He was just looking around and he's talking about an ex-girlfriend or something like that. It had nothing to do with what he was talking about or even talking to me after about it. It was just you're a Scream fan, aren't you? Why are you saying that on the mic, first of all? Can you not talk to me? This is so weird. But the fact that he was right and the fact that I had my Scream Blu-ray there, it's a moment that we replicated. It was just unreal.
Yeah. He did sign it though, right?
And thankfully, he made me buy a shirt though. He's like, "But you got to buy a shirt after the show." I'm like, "Okay." It's a shit shirt. It's just a puking emoji or something. I think that's one of his logos. It's weird.
I don't even know how to follow up that story now. I just want to ask if there's anything else you'd like to plug or promote. What's the future of Bloodbath and Beyond that you want to tell our audience about?
Well, I don't know what the future is, to be honest. Just keep grinding, doing our thing. If you guys want to learn more about us, check us out on YouTube, Bloodbath and Beyond, at Bloodbath_TV on Instagram and Twitter. We're very active across the board, pretty much. MidCard Maniacs, just search MidCard Maniacs. Primary focus is on AEW stuff, a lot of fantasy booking for AEW. We do some prediction videos as well for WWE content, and then Extreme Underground. Check that out. It's disturbing as shit. And I promise you, I'm going to blow up doing some talking about people puking on each other. So check that out.
I think you may have spilled the beans a little bit. You and my man Jeroen working on something. He said he's been working on something big with collaborating. Did you just tell on yourself?
Well, I guess if he's already said that, then that's fine. Yeah, I'm a part of it, and it's going to be nice. So I'm really excited to see how everything comes together, and some of the other people involved.
He said it's been a pain in the ass editing it, but he said it's going to be worth it.
I bet. I offered my editing hand, so if he has issues, I told him, come at me. I got you. I don't have a job now. I can do it.
Yeah, but you got 3 channels.
Never mind. Back off.
You can handle it. Order some Chinese food and some beer, and you'll handle it. Jay, I just want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have someone I've been watching, on YouTube for so many years on the show. It means a lot, man. Is there any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, I just want to thank you guys for having me. It's awesome to just be able to, like I said, connect with you guys on Twitter and just come out and talk some, talk YouTube, talk horror, talk wrestling. If you guys ever want to talk about anything specific, holla at me. I'm always around.
Awesome, man. Sounds good. We appreciate you coming on.
Right on. Thanks again.